Hello, hello, and welcome to this week's Author Spotlight, where I'm very, very lucky to have the wonderful Dr. Carol Samuel with us, who's going to be talking about The Tenacious Student. And I can't wait to find out how she went from non-academic to PhD. So please join me with giving her a warm welcome as we bring Carol into the studio today. So Carol, hi, thank you so much for joining us today. So we're going to be talking about your book. So just tell us, why did you, go back a question actually, your writing journey from the time you decided to write the book to getting it published, that was like what for you?
What, how long, in terms of how long?
How long, the experience?
Okay, so in terms of how long, it was probably about 9 to 12 months from start to finish.
Fabulous.
The experience, cathartic. It's probably a really good word. It was extremely cathartic for me, and that's part of the reason I wrote it, if I'm honest. It's been sitting in me for best part of 10 years, and I guess I don't know about other authors, but for me, COVID gave me space that I wouldn't otherwise have had to put pen to paper, and that really was the push I needed. Added to that, I have to say, it was immaculate timing actually. Karen Williams of Librotas had produced this smart author system, which was, well, it gave me the shove I needed, I think, to kind of get it in some kind of sequence.
Yeah. So what was it that worked about the smart author system then to get that? Because you said you had it in you for 10 years, and it was cathartic to get it out. What was it about the smart author system that helped you sort of get your book out?
It was methodical, I think. I knew, because of what I was writing, I had lots of information, lots of paperwork, I had lots of meeting notes and things like that formed part of it. But it was just about putting all that together and then getting it down on paper. And I think also having the confidence to write in a different style to the one I'd been used to writing as a scientist. And the two styles are incredibly different.
Yeah, there is something magical, I think, when an author finds their own voice. It's because it's actually coming from you. So tell us a little bit about the book, because I haven't even asked you that. I've given it away. I can stick the title up as we're chatting so people can go and look it up. But tell us a little bit about the book.
So this is my book. It is The Tenacious Student, okay? And The Tenacious Student it's part memoir, it's part science, research, it's about learning, it's about pain. So I'm a complementary therapist. My specialism is reflexology and pain management, and my research was about pain and how reflexology can support people in pain. But it wasn't so much the research that I wanted to write about, because I'd done that in my thesis. What I wanted to write about was the journey and how challenging I found it. But I wanted others to find inspiration in what I'd written. And in order to do that, I think I had to find my own voice.
Yeah.
So part of the journey in being an academic is that I had to write as a scientist. And writing this book meant that I could write it in a conversation, that kind of style.
Yeah.
But it wasn't quite that simple. But for me, it was about getting everything that was stuck in here and here out onto paper.
Totally get that. Now, there was something else that you mentioned when we were off air about being the first in the world.
Yeah.
So tell us a bit more about that.
Research, when I started research into reflexology, there was very little around. I think one other person in the UK had done a PhD, and I was the second to do it. But the difference was that I didn't have a nursing background, I didn't have a medical background, and I didn't have a science background. So I was kind of thrown in the deep end. I was in the right place at the right time, going to do an academic qualification, and ended up weirdly doing a PhD, because I happened to be in that place. It culminated, if you like, in the world's first PhD in reflexology and pain management, and was done in a science lab rather than in a clinical environment. So, you know, normally you would associate complementary medicine with a lovely, cozy place where there were candles burning, there's gentle music and everything else. And mine wasn't like that. I was stuck between two labs in a little corridor type situation where I had a treatment table, nobody else around, no external noises, and I wasn't even allowed to speak to the people that were coming to have their treatments with me. And I was inflicting them with pain, which was even more challenging.
That's got to be another book all in itself then, isn't it? How to communicate compassion without any words. That this is good for you, and I'm doing it for a reason.
Well, yeah, so, that's right.
I think you've sort of touched on it, but just to clarify, so why did you write the book?
I wrote it because it was probably the most difficult journey I've ever been through. I left school without any qualifications. I wouldn't consider myself to be a natural academic, and I had to learn huge amounts of information. First and foremost, I think probably I had to learn neuropharmacology, neurophysiology, neuroanatomy, which wasn't something I'd ever done before. I had to learn research methods. I had to learn recruitment techniques. I had to learn about qualitative and quantitative research. So there was a huge, huge learning curve. In addition to that, I was in a faculty that didn't really want me, because the course that I was supposed to be sitting alongside, which was a course in natural and complementary medicines, didn't run in the end. So I was kind of superfluous to requirements, but I was already in there, so they had to stick with me. And I think the journey going through it was very painful. And I needed to be able to, and I held a lot of anger, to be fair. I think I held an awful lot of anger inside me, and I hadn't realised it really, to the extent that I was able to express it. And I held on to that for 10 years. And getting it out on paper and being able to say it in a way that I felt right. So there wasn't somebody there saying to me, you have to write first person or past participle, no colloquial terms, it has to be backed up by evidence, blah, blah, blah. This was just me. This was my voice.
Yeah. And
my voice was important because that enabled me to express everything I felt. Right back to the basics, if you like, you know. And it's kind of odd because I think I felt when I was going through it that I really wasn't supported. I really wasn't. And that in itself presented lots of issues for me in my personal life. And it's only when you step out of that and you take the time to really read what's you're spewing out in this as I'm typing, you know, it's all coming out. And I had to reflect on it because obviously I want the reader to be able to feel as if they were where I was. And it's only when I took a step back from that and reflected on it at the end of each chapter that I realised actually I got so much support. I did get that support, and you don't see it. You don't see it when you're in the middle of it.
No, because at the time you're in so much pain, aren't you, and frustrated, and you're all over the place. And it's really lovely to hear, because the book that I wrote, The Why, is about you and your story, and it is about recognizing, yes, there's painful parts of our story,
Yeah.
but if we can, when we can detach from it and we can actually view it objectively, which is why I love supporting Karen Williams with the authors, because the author's journey is a great way of revisiting the way that we talk about our experiences, and encapsulating all of it with a more balanced perspective, which not only makes it easier for the reader to read, but it also makes it easier for us to live with, because we get to express it in a more holistic way, which is obviously as part of your work as well. So what would you think is as being an author then, what's the most important thing that you've learnt?
In terms of writing, that actually I can write. It doesn't have to be scientific.
Yeah.
I can write. People seem to like the way that I've written it, and I think that in itself was difficult, because when I first approached Karen with it and I said to her, look, this is what I want to write, she said, you shouldn't write it, maybe consider writing it this way, or maybe consider writing that way. It's not, doesn't fit in that, and it doesn't fit in this, so it doesn't fit specifically in a particular genre. So it doesn't fit neatly into autobiography, it doesn't fit neatly into science, it doesn't fit neatly into research. It's all of those things, and I knew how I wanted to write it, and I didn't know whether or not I could do it. So it's given me the confidence to write again, which is one good thing. I knew I could write, but because during my PhD I had been challenged with my writing every step of the way, because it wasn't scientific, and I didn't have that, you can't say, oh, I did this, that, or the other. You can say, you suggest this, or you propose that, and it's a different kind of language. So it helped me to process my own thoughts. It helped me to put together a very structured and methodical process, and that I think came from the program, because in Karen's program she goes through each of those steps. She's questioning you all the time. You think that you've got it, and then she'll say something and you think, oh, I didn't think of that. And then you'll go, well, how can I get around that? So you'll put a suggestion forward, and then she'll come back, and then you'll go forward, and the communication, I mean, it's been great, because she helped with my thinking processes, and she made me think about things I wouldn't ordinarily have thought about.
And I think that's a lovely thing, even when you just said that Karen said it doesn't fit here, doesn't fit there. I think the lovely thing about the way, even if someone asks you a question and you don't, coach or mentor, but particularly Karen, because she's so non-judgmental, she literally just wants to help you find what's right. I think when she asks a question, I think it sounds like you absolutely knew, well, it doesn't fit there, doesn't fit, but this is how I want to write it. So those questions, having that space to be questioned, can often make you go, no, I absolutely know this is the way it's got to be. Just because somebody has inferred perhaps it should be a different way, it kind of it can ignite that what's really important when someone's even edges to say perhaps you shouldn't do it. It's like, and I think that's the value of having a coach, mentor, and a group, is that you've got that, not only to get suggestions of things you didn't know, but also it can, when someone suggests a change of some sort, you can know in your heart of hearts that absolutely that's not the way it's got to go, and it ignites and affirms what you know to be true for yourself, that to be yourself in those books. It's great to hear that, which kind of brings us on to, what do you wish you'd known before you started?
Gosh, I think I wish I'd known more about marketing before I started writing it and going the route that I did. I needed to write it for me. I think I probably had in my mind that it had a small area, a small niche market, and that's one of those questions that Karen asks you right from the beginning. Who's your audience? Who's your avatar? And I thought I had that all sewn up. And I still think I do, but what's interesting is that even those that are not into complementary medicine, even those that are know nothing about science, have come back and found inspiration in what I've written. And some of the feedback has been such, oh, I don't know, it's been heartwarming. You know, a couple of things people have written have moved me to tears. And that's been such a lovely feeling. But yeah, I think for me, I probably would want to add a little bit more on about marketing in the end. And I wish I'd known how to do that more. I mean, I'm early days here. I'm only a month in, nearly 2 months into when it went live. So I've still got a long way to go.
It's a tough one, and I know that Karen talks about it, and I know that she talks about it with all of us because I'm on the journey with you. But what I will reassure you, it never stops the marketing. That's just an ongoing thing. So it's never too late. And it's a fine line, isn't it? When you start to become an author, you're trying to find your voice, you're trying to work out who you are, and then you're going to shout about it to everybody about writing this book. So I think that everybody's a bit different. If you can take your potential readers with you, then you can share the journey with them, and that is marketing. But you can do that now with the author's journey. So just to reassure you, you could start writing about what it was like at the beginning of writing your book, and what was it like just through, and what's the journey been like, and so you can almost go back and do it retrospectively. So some people will do it as they're writing, and for other people that's just one step too many. To actually be out there publicly talking about their book when they haven't really got it formulated properly in their own head they just don't know. They can't do both.
I think it's taking that leap of faith as well. So I bought Karen's book Marketing Made Simple, and I started from the beginning of them. But I think I was a fair way into my writing before I did that. When I started to adopt some of the things that she'd suggested in there, it did make a difference. So I was kind of writing and marketing at the same time in the places where I thought I would get that audience. So they've kind of been on that journey with me from start to finish, which is a really good tip from Karen in her book. Because it tells you, actually, this is what you should be doing. Now you need to do, just get out there and do it. And again, it's having the confidence, because it does two things. I mean, A, it gives you the confidence because people start to engage with you, and B, it also pushes you out of your comfort zone, and at the same time puts a time limit, if you like, on your writing. Because people are anticipating the next stage of your writing. When's it coming out? When can we order it? You know? And the fact that she recommended that I set up something for pre-orders made a big difference, because I had, I think, about 150 pre-orders before I even published.
So it sounds a little bit like you thought you didn't have any support, but you did have more support than you thought. And you thought you weren't doing marketing, but you have been doing your marketing, because you actually sold 150 pre-orders. So that's absolutely amazing. So just a couple more questions then before we wrap up today. What was your lowest moment as an author?
I think keep proofreading. It reminded me of my thesis. Keep on having to go back and make corrections. But you kind of have to change position with the reader when you're doing it. So put yourself in their position as a reader. How would you like to see it? But at the same time, you don't want to lose your own voice. So yeah, I think, you know, by the end of it, I thought, do you know what? I'm sick of reading it now.
You are not the first author that gets to the point where they're sick of their book. It's just like, I just want it done now. Well, I think the reality is the brain is hardwired, isn't it, to save energy when patterns are repeating. So when you're having to go over it again and again and again, it does become quite laborious. So what's been your biggest success to date?
My biggest success has been the recognition that's come with it. When I started, not many people knew about me, not many people knew about my research, not many people understood how difficult and challenging it can be to do a PhD or carry out any kind of research, especially as a non-academic. And life goes on around you, it doesn't stand still. So getting that out there, I think people fully appreciate that actually the journey was a long one. I started in 2002 and I was awarded a PhD in 2011. So lots of life events happened along the way. So yeah, it felt good to get that recognition.
Fabulous, thank you. Well, is there anything else you'd like the viewers to know before we call this interview to an end today?
Yeah, I'd like to let them know that my book is still available online on all of the major sites, so Amazon, Waterstones, worldwide. It is also available on my website, in the shop, Reflex Master, so www.
Yeah, it's not letting me put a comment on here at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'll go into the author's journey group and actually put it under once we've come out of it.
Okay.
So it's
www.reflexmaster.co.uk and look under shop.
And your thing says store. Does it actually say shop on the actual thing?
It says shop, yeah.
Shop, okay.
Yeah.
So reflexmaster.co.uk and look under shop and you'll be able to get a copy of this book. Thank you so much for joining me today, Carol. It's been a joy listening to you, and I know that you're going to help many students get from non-academic to PhD. I'm sure you're going to inspire loads of people to think more about how reflexology can actually help with pain, and more importantly, you're going to get more people out there talk about writing books, because they'll get their voice heard as well. So thank you so much. It's been a joy interviewing you today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Sheryl.